And we are back live, and I'm still alive, which is a good thing. And tonight we're talking with Steve Ward. Um, he's out of Michigan, and checking out your website or your Facebook page, Steve. I don't see a lot
Haven't
of.
found it yet.
No, I found the web page or the
Okay.
Facebook page.
He's trying to find your background in the paranormal.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I'm looking for.
well,
So
I've got a bio I can send you now, but
No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll have you tell us about yourself, so people that are watching can hear it straight from you.
you want me to give you a little bit of my a thumbnail of my stellar background?
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Uh, well, unlike many people I'm sure you've had on the show, and maybe yourselves, uh, have had some kind of an experience that brought them into this. I've
Mhm.
had maybe one strange experience in my entire life. So I came into this. I was a fan of science fiction, that kind of thing, and then when
Mhm.
the idea that some of these craft, these UFOs, might actually be real or coming from other planets, that was pretty thrilling to a kid. I was weaned on the anthologies of Frank Edwards, like Strangest of All and Stranger Than Science. That's where I
Yeah.
first learned about the Flatwoods Monster and the Kelly Hopkinsville Goblins and all those. And he even had a chapter in one of his books called The Monster Apes of Oregon. Although I don't know if he used the term Bigfoot back then, but certainly he called them Sasquatch. And but then in South Central, well, I'm in South Central Michigan now, but closer to Detroit, we had this great UFO flap, and it wasn't just in Michigan; it hit the Midwest, and that was March of 1966. I was in junior high at the time, so I did not have a vehicle to go play UFO investigator.
Yeah.
But it was like having aliens landing in your backyard. Ann Arbor, Hillsdale, Dexter, and it got the attention begrudgingly of the Air Force. They weren't going to do anything about it until Gerald Ford, then Senator Gerald Ford, said,
Mhm.
you know, we need to do something about this because credible people are seeing something. There were landings, police officers were seeing these things. And so they dispatched Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the real Hynek, not the action hero you saw recently on the TV show. And he was still tied to Project Blue Book. So he had to,
Yeah.
walk this line because he had begun to believe that there was really something substantive to this, even though he had been a skeptic. And so that's when I'm sure that people either remember or they've read about the Swamp Gas Fiasco because he was pressured to make some kind of a statement. He was at a news conference, and I think I remember seeing it live on TV when I was a kid. And they handed him a picture of George Adamski's classic Venusian scout ship, and he said it looked like a chicken brooder. So they got a good laugh out of that. And so he tried to explain that he thought some of the sightings, some of the ones in Hillsdale, might have been might have been caused by swamp gas, the glowing gas
Mhm.
in swamps or whatever, which doesn't really make sense anyway. But the press ran with it. Like this is our explanation for UFO reports for all time, and that was it. So he finally did live that down. I actually got to see him speak 10 years later at the MUFON Symposium, 1976, in Ann Arbor. And again, I was while I was well out of junior high, I still didn't have the finances to go all over the world to UFO conferences. So this one was right in Ann Arbor, it was just a short distance, and it was great. Hynek was there. He talked about his talk was called "Swamp Gas Plus 10 and Counting," and it was a lot of self-depreciating humor, But Ray Stanford was there. Jerome Clark was in speaking for Jacques Vallée, and it was I was in heaven. at that time. It was just great. So that's what, if you go back to March 1966, a few months later was the first major sighting of the Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, even before Mothman actually had a name. He was just the bird, or he was this humanoid winged apparition or creature or whatever. And it was a little bit later on that apparently some creative copy editor dubbed him Mothman. After all, the Batman TV show was popular at the time, so it was just a play on that. So that's kind of what we started the obligatory high school UFO club and that sort of thing. But that's kind of what got me started.
That's a good little story. I like that. So, didn't Heineck wind up becoming a believer?
Oh yes. He was he was pretty convinced by the time he uttered the words swamp gas. And I remember reading, Jacques Vallée was his friend and colleague, and Vallée has written many excellent books. One of them that I read early on was Passport to Magonia, but in more recent years he's been writing Forbidden Science, which are his journals. So 4 of them are out so far for each decade: 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Can't wait for the next one. And you get all kinds of insights to the history and his observations of, sometimes it's much fun to find out about the individuals in this field than the studying the phenomena itself. And as an aside, I have to recommend another book called Shockingly Close to the Truth. And that was written by James Mosley, who was the editor of Saucer News and kind of a trickster. Like he and his buddy Gray Barker would get together, get pretty tanked up, and create some hoaxes that still, I think, reverberate to this day. And his book is mostly about most about the people. He talks about the phenomenon a little bit, and he is kind of a believer, or was kind of a believer. We lost him a few years ago, but it's just another fascinating book. So, but anyway, I got sidetracked. Jacques Vallée talked about those days with he was disappointed at the time that Heineck had talked about swamp gas, but he understood what the situation was. But it's fun to go through those days to find out what they were thinking and how they were trying to. They wrote the book The Invisible College, where they had the kind of a secret group of scientists that didn't want to come out of the closet, so they didn't even always use their names to talk about this stuff. Now you can do that a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah.
I think like the paranormal world has opened up doors, and it's gotten a little bit more socially acceptable because more people are seeing things now and recording things with, the advanced technology of cell phones, which wasn't, available until, whenever that started, like take pictures,
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Everybody's got one of these in their pocket now.
Yeah, everybody's got a camera in their pocket.
And these things have excellent cameras on them.
Yeah. And even trap cameras, they're not always reliable because sometimes the phenomena seems to be able to mask or hide itself, but they still catch a lot of strange stuff sometimes. So, it's really hard to, it's getting harder and harder to completely ignore everything. Certainly you can, and you can still listen to the news broadcast where they have that little story at the end, they giggle about the guy that saw the UFO, because there still is that, but it has changed at least a little bit. Certainly from the 60s when I had my high school UFO club.
That's pretty cool. So you were enthused enough on it to actually create a club for yourself?
I'm sorry, what?
Friends? You were enthused enough with your experience that you created a club in high school?
I didn't get. I'm having a little hard time.
I said you were enthused enough with the experience you had in order to create a club in high school.
In order to what?
Create a club in high school.
Oh, well, the club was a friend of mine, I guess, was the main force behind it. But that's back when everybody still thought that aliens were coming from outer space, and they weren't really looking to the high strangeness aspects of all these things. And so we were pretty happy with the. We were reading books by the Lorenzens, Jim and Coral Lorenzen of the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. They had these great books called Flying Saucer Occupants. Now we were set up in Kevin's garage, which had no heat or insulation, so we obviously didn't meet very often in the wintertime. And the name of our group was, now back then, flying saucer was kind of passé. So we were the Aerial Phenomena Investigations and Research Center. Now, originally, we thought in Aerial Phenomena Research and Investigations. If you sound out that acronym, it's not complimentary. So we switched those letters around. I mean, we weren't dealing with chimps here, So, but I have to tell you, our director, there were four of us, our director, Kevin, this was 1967. Have you guys familiar with the great Congress of Scientific Ufologists in New York City?
I was just barely born in 67.
At the Commodore Hotel.
That's a year before I became.
Well, James Mosley of Saucer News had this big conference. He had Keel was there. He had Roy Thinnis was there, who starred in the TV show The Invaders. Architect David Vincent being plagued every week by the aliens. They just don't kill him, so he can survive to the next episode. There were a lot of I can't remember everybody that was there, but he went there. His mom was going to take me too, but my parents decided that I wasn't going to go off to New York City, at that age. So I had to live vicariously through Kevin. But he met Gray Barker, he met James Mosley, and a lot of these people. He helped them out behind the scenes with the paperwork or whatever it was, whatever they were doing. And so they gave him a bunch of loot to bring back. And I eventually inherited all those great books. So I was kind of the last holdout of our group. So I'm the one that eventually inherited all the files and all the cool books and everything. But I actually met Gray Barker briefly at that 1976 MUFON symposium. He, of course, wasn't speaking there. They wouldn't have, they turned their nose up at Barker. And Barker, of course, he was, he maybe kind of deserved it. He was always pulling pranks, and he would take artistic or poetic license, shall we say, with some of the stories. But he was peddling his Saucerian publication. On the cover was a creature called Vegetable Man. And in that particular issue was a rejection letter to James Mosley. He was trying to join MUFON at the time. And so Walter Webb said, I'm sorry, Jim, at this time you understand we can't do that. But anyway, Mosley eventually did become even a state director for MUFON. But he admitted he didn't do anything, so they fired him anyway. But anyway, it was great. I actually cornered Gray Barker, and I asked him a bunch of questions about his book, The Silver Bridge, was about the Mothman era, in comparison to the Mothman prophecies with John Keel. And so I guess I did my mini little interview, and he was a real character. He's really very tall. I expected him to have short hair because that's what all the pictures used to be of him in the 50s and 60s. But it was kind of longish. And he had very thick glasses. He looked kind of like somebody you'd see in the 50s reading poetry in a beatnik shop or something like that, a coffee shop. So nice guy. And I thought that was really a cool experience to actually meet the Gray Barker.
Oh,
that's pretty cool. So, did you try to collect evidence and stuff, or
try to what?
Collect evidence, like pictures or any evidence of
trying to
people?
Capture photographs?
Yeah.
We would go on sky watches, but it'd be like in Billy's backyard, right in the middle of the city, So now, in a few years later, I became involved. This is, several years later. One of the guys that I was in that original group with we formed another. It was we didn't even form the group. It was just very informal. There were several professional people there, and we would get together on Saturday mornings and talk about this stuff. And it was really a lot of fun. We went to Lloyd was sort of our de facto leader. We went over to his house the day that they aired the UFO incident for the first time, the made-for-TV movie based on the Fuller's the interrupted journey about Betty and Barney Hill. One thing we did do, my first radio experience, Lloyd set it up. We went to a radio station in Ionia, Michigan, and there were about four of us, and we were all there with big bulky microphones, and it was the guy interviewing us did his regular show. He wasn't that well versed on the phenomena, so he didn't ask great questions, and it was live, so we had callers coming in. It was around Christmas time, so they had a million commercials. But we had this one gentleman call in, he wouldn't shut up, and he was talking about temperature inversions, and he said, yeah, and he saw this time, and it looked like it was reflecting up here and all that. And so I said, well, some of these things have landed, and he said, what? You mean these have come down? And then he hung up. So that was quite an experience. And then one thing that happened, you know how people like John Keel and so forth would talk about how there was always some kind of a technical difficulty, or things wouldn't record, or things would go awry. Well, we were all supposed to get a cassette copy of our interview, and it didn't record. So I thought, oh, cool, just like John Keel, right?
That's kind of interesting.
And then it was probably just a glitch, but and then at the very end, there was another phone call that came in after the show was over. So I fielded it, and I wasn't that well versed at the time, but the guy told me that he saw a helicopter come down somewhere in the cornfields of Michigan, and it was completely silent, and then it took off. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And it was years later I heard about the animal mutilations and the silent helicopters and that sort of thing, but I didn't have a frame of reference at the time. But it was a great experience. To say that my first radio experience was way back in about 1976, I guess.
Oh,
Interesting. What's up, Joe?
that was a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
Yes, yeah, it was.
I mean, but you think about how technology has advanced from then. Try to take pictures of UFOs back then with the cameras that were involved that you could easily get your hands on. Yeah, I don't think they'd come out too well.
Well, right, and there was one of the guys that spoke at that MUFON symposium. His name was William Spalding from Ground Saucer Watch, and they did photographic analysis back then. Nothing, it was nothing like digital photography, unknown, but they would blow up the image, and they would examine the pixels. And he went through this long process, this slideshow, showing us how it all worked. Well, what I remember is they would get to a certain part of the process. They would run a cursor line through the image. If the line went down straight, that meant it was a two-dimensional image, probably a cutout or something. But if the line made a curve like so, it was a three-dimensional object. He told me that they examined the George Adamski saucer, the photographs. They would get in really close. He said something, it's a long time ago, so maybe I'm wrong about this. He said something about toilet tubes. And he must have read something on there. There's another source that says that one of the landing gear, how they have the 3-ball landing gear. Mm-hmm. One scientist said he zoomed in on it and saw GE on it. So apparently George didn't change the bulb properly to hide that. In fact, Ray Stanford, who was still with us, I believe, interesting character. He said he and his brother Rex met Adamski when they were teenagers. They were like starry-eyed teenagers and believed everything about Adamski, that he had really met Orthon in the desert and all this. Well, Adamski went and showed him how he had faked some of the photographs. And Stanford said that the main part of the Venusian scout ship came from a lamp that the Adamskis brought with them from Poland. So a Polish lamp, a cosmic lamp, is part of the photograph.
Nice. So, do you follow any of the stuff that MUFON has done?
I actually I was a member of Michigan MUFON, but with all the stuff, I've kind of let that lapse. And Bill Konkoleski, a really good guy, director of Michigan MUFON. I used to love to go to the meetings. We would we'd have a brunch and then they'd have a speaker. But before that, we'd sit around for an hour or two just talking to people about their experiences, and I would hear fascinating stuff from these people. And the speakers varied, different types of speakers. So, but I don't really follow them too much. I won't mention any names, but some MUFON people have told me that they do a decent job when it comes to the basic UFO sightings and so forth, but they're not very well equipped to handle the stranger aspects. And that's what like I say, back in the 60s, I was very happy with the ET theory and men landing in craft and taking the little guys taking soil samples, sometimes giants or whatever. But then I read John Keel's Operation Trojan Horse, and that messed me up, man. That was he really began to demonstrate that all these things, UFOs, cryptids, psychic phenomena, have some kind of connection. I was a little prepared for it when I read a book before that by him called Strange Creatures from Time and Space. It's now called The Guide to Mysterious Beings. And he started talking about window areas and trying to come to grips with the fact that these things seem to sort of pop up, leave footprints, scare the hell out of people, and then they're kind of gone. And sometimes they even show up in cities or near cities, not just rural areas. So I came kind of kicking and screaming reading Trojan Horse, but he really, he talked about, he used the term ultra terrestrial, which he actually used as kind of a literary device, but he was trying to come to grips with the idea that he thought that much of this phenomena, even as strange as it is, may be a natural condition of the planet. And then I barely recovered from Trojan Horse, and I read Jacques Vallée's Passport to Magonia, and that was it. I think I probably needed therapy after that.
I might have to write these down and actually take a look at those books.
Oh, those fascinating.
I love all this stuff. I grew up on it. My mom and I actually, when I was 8 years old, we seen a square craft fly over our house, and then my dad had a 50-foot radio antenna, ham CB radio antenna that was on top of the house, and this thing completely cleared it. And it had 4 lights on the corners and 1 really bright light in the center. We watched this thing come in. It came in from the west, went right over the house, and then we went to the front of the house and watched it just go just straight across. And this was in California.
Right.
Okay.
And San Joaquin Valley. We lived about 21 miles south of Fresno.
Okay. And it was kind of a square or a cube shape?
It was a square. It was a square craft. I distinctly remember it. It had different colored lights on the outside, and it had 1 center light on a bright white light in the center. And you can actually see where it looked like the light was inside of a circle type thing, almost like a doorway or something.
Any noise or anything?
Nope. Not a single bit of noise. Any
missing time?
That I can't tell you.
Okay.
I'm not certain because I was only 8 years old.
Right.
Still, being 8 years old, you still didn't have a full concept of time and all that stuff.
No, I'm not sure I do now either.
But I know now that I have actually experienced what is considered a long second. You ever hear of that?
I not in those particular words, but I think I know what you mean.
It's basically where you're continuing on in your existence, but it's like time stops on you or it pauses. And I've watched this happen several times to me. It's really weird. But I've had other experiences too. Just here in Wisconsin, I've seen 2 of them already.
Yeah, one out in Marshall.
Out in Marshall, we were headed home. Me and my girlfriend were headed home from my niece's wedding, and I seen this bright orange ball coming down at an angle. It looked like a meteorite, and we kept watching it. She seen it too. We kept watching it. We get home, and it's still coming in, and we park, get out of the car, and it's almost completely clear. There's a couple of little spotty clouds here and there. It went in behind this cloud and never reemerged until it literally did a 90-degree angle and went towards the north or the south. It was really, really strange.
Yeah, I harassed him forever about the picture.
Right.
No.
Oh,
I
that was
didn't
a
take a
different
picture of that one.
Oh, that was a different one.
Yeah, that one I was so mesmerized with it, I forgot to grab my phone out and actually snap the picture. I had my hands full of other stuff. And then I was working as a garbage man, and I seen one. That one was a triangular craft, and it was moving extremely slow. It was about 500 feet off the ground and about 100 yards out in the field. And this was out in the middle of nowhere. There was like no houses around. And it was just coming up on sunrise. And I stopped the truck. I got out, and it was moving very slow, but it was moving against the wind. There was a breeze blowing at my back, and I was standing watching it coming in towards me.
And I imagine it was completely silent.
Yep, there wasn't a single noise at all, except for the garbage truck that was running behind me.
I saw one thing once. I've got a pair of 3rd generation night vision goggles, and if you look at the star field with those, it's phenomenal. You see so many more stars. You see meteors and comets you can't see with the naked eye, satellites. And one of the first nights I put them up to my eyes. Now, I found out that birds at a very high level, it looks like pinpoints of light. So when you see them flying around, maybe it's an armada of spaceships, but it's just birds flying erratically. Well, I spotted something that was like a perfect, not a triangle, but a perfect V. And like birds fly in formation, but it looked like both sides were equidistant, and there was absolutely no variation in it. And it's moving slowly across the sky, and I'm dropping my jaw, and it's getting closer and closer to the full moon. And I was told, don't look at light sources or whatever like that, or full moon, because you could hurt the optics. So I could only look at this for a short time. I couldn't put the the goggles down to look to see if something was blocking out stars, all the things that I would have liked to have done. But I've seen many birds in this thing, and they're never, ever that stark edged. But there was nothing in the center that I could see, and nothing toward the end. And it was such a short sighting that I don't know what to make of it. But I do hope to see something unusual in these things someday, as long as it's not too close.
Yeah. No, yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Now those
they don't fly in a perfect formation either. That's just it.
No.
They move.
And this was just 2 straight lines on an angle,
and birds
so,
don't fly
I
that
don't
way.
know.
No, they don't. They can't. They just don't. It's always off a little bit or something. It's not quite a V, but it is a V. You know.
You could probably hear me better, can't you?
Yes, yeah, very well. Now, loud and clear.
Because I realized that this thing picked up the camera mic instead of the mic here.
Oh, okay. I thought
So
maybe my hearing was really going.
Nope. I changed it. I fixed it.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, because I was like, he should be able to hear me. I know this thing's working. So, but yeah, those night vision goggles you got, do they have a thing to where you can put a camera on it?
No, I don't have the attachment, but I have held my camera up to it, and I have clicked some star fields. And I was in a cemetery once up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I got some pretty cool pictures of the tombstones. You know, you get that green sort of color
Green
over.
hue on it.
Yes, right. And so, but it's not easy to, I mean, to line them up. So I really need to get a proper attachment for it.
No, it's pretty cool. I've got an ocular scope that's got the night vision, and it's got a little camera that goes over the back of it
Oh,
that I can record with. So,
but these are phenomenal. The third generation. When people put them up to their eyes for the first time, they'll gasp because they just can't believe you can see through this.
everything you can
Pair of
see.
those.
Yeah.
I need a pair of those for out here.
Yeah, really. Where
You know,
Joe lives, it's dark. You go
I know.
outside.
That's
it's dark.
perfect.
I live out in the middle of nowhere, kind of. And when I look over out my back door to let the dog out, you know, I look out, there's nothing. It's just like all field, like, you know, and a tree line. So you can see the sky perfectly. There's no real street lights. They're so small and so dim around here that they really don't make difference when it comes to looking at the sky. You know,
You
it's
do need some ambient light to make these work, but a good star field will do it. I was in the woods one time where the forest canopy was so thick, the stars were blocked out, and I couldn't see through them. I had to click over to the IR illuminator, which is kind of like a flashlight, but it only
right.
goes so far. Another time I went alone into the infamous TNT area. Now, the TNT area is about 6 miles north of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and that's where they first saw the Mothman, the major sighting of the Mothman. And it's called McClintic Wildlife Area now. And it's just, it's creepy in the daytime. At night, it's really creepy. Well, I went down there one January. It was a mild January, and there was a partial, almost a full moon up top. And that bathed the light. There was so much ambient light that when I put the goggles up, it was almost like looking at this landscape in daylight. When you take the goggles off, the darkness would creep in, and it's like, nope, we want the goggles up there. And it was cool because the forest, you know, the tree the leaves are all gone, so you can see deep into the forest. And I was there a couple of years before, where some of the people I was with, including Rosemary Ellen Guiley, another great researcher we lost a couple of years ago. She and another lady were picking up on something. They were sensing, they thought, shadow people. And they were both kind of getting the same vibe, but not talking to each other. Now, I didn't see, I mean, I don't, you know, I need flesh-eating zombies before before I register anything. But so it was pretty cool. I just wanted to see if I had the gumption, let's say, to go out there alone. I mean, the locals go out there alone all the time. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I went. Now they have these concrete igloos out there, bunkers where they used to store the munitions that they would make for World War II. That's what it was. That's why they call it the TNT area. It was a huge industrial complex in the 40s. And you can look at the old photographs and see the complex that was there, which is all gone. And I got to the third igloo, which had a lot of brush on it, and I was going to go inside with my camera. I looked like a paranormal investigator, man. I had my camera, I had my flashlight with my digital camera duct taped to it. You know, I looked like the real thing. And I got almost to the door, and I heard something like a rant, like a rant, rant, rant. Well, at first I heard the flapping of wings, and I thought, okay, and is the Mothman here, right? And then I heard the call or whatever it was, and my wife listened to the recording afterwards, and she said it was some kind of a heron. So this poor guy was probably perched there sleeping, and this big oaf came and woke him up, and he was a little bit cranky. But I didn't really have an encounter with the winged Garuda that night.
Well, darn.
I know, you know, drive all that way and I get a bird,
Yeah, it happens to the best of us.
I guess.
Yeah, we're still not done with, like we were talking earlier, we're still not done with Bray Road yet. You know,
No, there's a lot there.
too much shit going on there.
Well, that's another one of these high strangeness areas like Point Pleasant. When the Mothman was being seen, they were seeing UFOs. They were having missing time. People that saw the creature would have outbreaks of poltergeist phenomena. There were allegedly people that were accosted by creepy looking men in black, animal mutilations, everything. And the Bray Road is another one of these. And we talked a little bit off air about Lee Hample, who has a farm right adjacent to Bray Road. And I was there at the Beast of Bray Road conference last October. And I spoke there, but it was billed as we were going to go to this Lee Hample's farm where the dog man had been seen, I guess. And we were going to see some photographs and have a hayride, right? Well, I thought the main attraction would be the hayride. The main attraction was 2 hours of these incredible photographs that this man has captured over the last decade. And you know what I'm talking about. It's not easy to convey to people what they look like, but I can tell you where you can see some of them. The Bucks County Paranormal team out of Pennsylvania that was there, they did a night investigation for not terribly long. They're out there at night, and you can see it, but it's about a half hour long. And they, that's cool.
That's just one of them from.
Oh yeah, and
trail camp.
They started hearing this howling, and I don't know what kind of an animal it was, but they were seeing eye shine 6 feet off the ground. So they were getting the one guy, Dominic. I asked him, he was a sensitive, and I said, "Here you go." Oh, cool. I asked Dominic. I said, "What did you feel out there?" And he said, "I felt like I was underwater in a shark tank, and I was holding the bait." I thought, okay, maybe I don't want to go there. I think I do, but yes. Now I remember seeing that. Now, isn't there something weird off to the right on that one, like a machine or something?
No.
Okay.
No, I've got the same pictures, and I've got them set up a little bit better than Joe.
Well, then why don't you share?
But yeah, what the hell is that?
I'll have to find them.
Mine's in a different folder. It's all messed up. I was just looking quick. But that one, the first one that you saw, that we're still trying to figure out what that was or is, because there's no bird that's got wings like that we know of that's native to Wisconsin.
No.
And that's got that long of a neck or whatever. I mean, it almost, at first, it looked like a dragon to us.
And what about those strange mists that keep showing up? And then you can tell by the timestamp, he showed us one series of pictures of sort of like a turtle shell, a black turtle shell. This thing whips around the tree in a very short time, captured by a few photographs. And then he shows us some of these carcasses that have been left out there, deer carcasses and so forth. And then the mist shows up at some point, and then at some time later, the carcass is gone. There's no footprints, no tracks, no drag tracks.
Did you get to see this one?
Yes. Is that the 5-toed print with the pad on the heel?
Five-toed 7 pad print. That the DNR tried to tell him it was a double print.
Yes, I know.
And it's like, how can you have that many double prints on the property?
You can't. And you remember this rock?
I don't know. Yes, I do.
That was in front of his barn.
Right.
Yeah.
I am. Okay.
With Lee. I'm actually holding the cast of that print that I showed.
Okay. Yeah, and Lee was a math teacher for decades in Illinois.
He's a retired math professor.
A man of science. And when he finally met Linda Godfrey, he approached her after he started getting these photographs. And he told her that if I had read your books 3 months earlier, I would have thrown them in the trash. But now he's out there seeking answers. And it was funny because he tells the story about some of the locals saying, "Hey, you know what? there's a werewolf that lives in the woods back there. And he's going, what are you talking about?
Yep. See,
And remember
here's that
He
picture.
bought
Right
that
there.
land to work as a hayfield for his horses back home in Illinois.
Yeah.
He had
Yeah, they
no
board horses.
idea. I mean, when he bought this land, he had no idea what was going on until
No.
afterwards, and people
Yeah.
were approaching him, like you said. You know, yeah.
Here's that picture Joe was showing me. And here's the follow-up picture. You see how the figure moves?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm saying I got it set up different than Joe does.
Yeah, and he's got the cams. He's got his trail cams set up so they take multiple pictures.
And then
like
this is
boom,
a
boom, boom,
picture.
when they get triggered.
This is shooting down towards that one corner.
Right.
And then there's that same shot. That tree right there.
Yeah.
Lee said when this picture was snapped, that tree was only about 14 feet tall. And then you got this figure here that he doesn't know what the heck it is.
Right.
In comparison, it's like, really, it's got to be at least 8 feet.
Right. Right. There was the one I was thinking of. Oh, there we go. Let's see. Yeah, look at it again.
And then there's this one again. Different one. This one is a new one that he sent us from October of 2020. It goes this, then that, and then that.
Okay.
And you keep an eye open here.
Yeah. I think
And
that's
you
he
gotta-
showed us that sequence.
You got to realize too that camera that snapped that's snapping those pictures like a second apart.
Right.
So in the span of 2-3 seconds, that beehive looking thing comes up there that quick.
Right. One of the pictures that oh man.
And then that's the other one. He called it a dragon when he seen it.
Yeah.
From what I see here, what it reminds me of is the ancient Mayan snake god.
Oh, serpent gods, right.
Serpent god. Because here's your body.
Right.
Here's your wings, which are kind of like the demon type wings.
Yeah, they're kind of curved.
And then here's your head. And it's got this the Mayan serpent god does have a head similar to a horse. And
Wow.
to me, that's what that looks like.
One of the ones I remember is you look at it, it's in the field. It looks like a black rope or line that goes double, 2 humps. And then people are looking at it, trying to make sense of it. Then he moves the camera over and you see some kind of a boxy mechanical machine or device or something that you can't make heads or tails of.
I don't know if we've seen that one. I don't remember seeing that one.
That's the one I remember. There's so many of them. He just
And
didn't
then
let you
this
take
one.
pictures,
Now this one, this is to the end of my pictures I got of it that I got set up. This one was in 2015 at 3:32 p.m. Now this is a starting picture that I gleaned from him.
Right?
Now at 2:39, same day.
Oh, yes.
2:39.
Saw that one.
And then this one, did he also show you this up here in the picture?
Yeah, the you mean the silhouette, the outline.
Oh,
Oh,
guys.
Oh, okay. Man.
and this one, there's 5 of them. And you do have the silhouette here, which looks like something standing in front of the camera. But to me, this right here looks transparent, like you can kind of see that tree line in behind it with the sky.
Could be.
And then here it is again. And it still looks transparent, but
But still, like I said, like we've said, if it's like a Bigfoot type creature, that's not surprising either, considering Kettle Moraine Forest is right there.
Uh-huh.
The thing is, how do we process this? These creatures, they act like wild animals. They eat roadkill. They eat bait. Uh, they yet
Kill the deer.
cameras they're very elusive. You very seldom get anything like that.
Right.
They the roadkill or whatever it is taken away, and it's not registered on the camera. Yet you're surrounded by this what seems to be some kind of technology.
Mm-hmm. And then see here on this one, you've only got 2.
Or how they snap the bones of deers in such a way that it looks twisted.
And then now this again is back, and now the blue one's back. See, the blue one's back, and then you've got 4 in a line up here, and then 1 right here.
Wow.
Now you've met Lee.
Yes.
Yeah, he said he was at the East of Bray Road conference last
Right.
week.
And he was
in
on
your
my
opinion, in your opinion, does he seem like the type of person that could fake pictures?
no. He was actually on my podcast, The High Strangeness Factor, and we spent a couple hours. And no, he is as down to earth and solid as you get. And while he was very skeptical at first, he had to deal with what he was seeing. Footprints, these same kind of footprints, not double footprints, but starting in the middle of nowhere in the snow and taking off on the ground. Did he tell you what Fred, his brother, told him the first time he told him about that? He said Fred told him that he must have parachuted in.
Maybe.
Fred, did you meet Fred? He's a good guy.
But
Okay.
And get told by the DNR, oh, that's just double prints.
Right. And one lady, he said, told him, I don't know if that was the DNR, but someplace told him that he was lying. He was faking these things. Another guy told him that, well, he got a pair of stilts, and he's been walking on the snow or whatever, or the ground.
Oh yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, I can see Lee doing a lot of things.
That takes a lot. That would take a lot
the
to do that.
ability or the stamina to sit there and walk
No.
on stilts on that property.
Not on the straight line like that is.
And not in the wintertime either.
I believe he's also tried to get universities involved, some kind of a study group, but they won't touch it. And I'm thinking, and when I talked to him about when he showed Linda Godfrey the property, that she must have been like a kid in a candy store. I mean, he's been writing about this stuff for years, and here, right there, is kind of his own laboratory where you can actually test some of these things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, this one that I just brought up, this is my own personal picture.
It's off your cell phone.
Is it on the property?
No.
This is the one I used to harass
this is.
about.
Oh, okay.
This picture I was on my way home to Marshall, where I used to live. I had a Galaxy S5. So it had the I can't remember if it was the 8 megapixel or the 13 megapixel in the front.
Either way, it's a decent
But
picture.
anyway, what I wanted to take a picture of was this cloud, because from this side all the way to this side had a full black, looked like a storm cloud imposed over top of it. And just the outline of the white cloud was there. When I got stopped, got the camera set and everything, and got ready to snap, this was all that was left in it. But the little red box on that show up to because it's trying to zoom in. The focusing box.
Yeah, it's targeting box.
It kept trying to target over this and focus in on it. So I went ahead and snapped the picture and didn't think anything of it until after I got home. And then I got the camera out and started looking, and then hooked it up to the computer so I could get a bigger view. Now when I show this to people, I don't tell them what I think I see. I ask them, what do they think they see? And I'll bring it in a little more for you. Because what you're seeing here is this is shot above a cornfield. That was a cornfield there.
Right.
And I'll keep coming in further.
Yeah, you were just off Highway 19 in Marshall.
Actually, it was County Road T, just before it connected with TT.
Well, it looks kind of like a classic flying saucer or disc-shaped craft. Hard to say because it's partially obscured by the haze.
Mhm.
But yeah, the more you, oh yeah, okay. It does seem to. I mean, it could be the way the clouds are shifting or whatever, but it looks like it could actually be something solid.
Yeah. I never tell people what I think it is. I always ask them when I show this, I always ask them, what do you see? I want to know what you're seeing, not what
I don't
I
see
think
nothing.
you see.
Right.
I don't see anything.
Of course you don't, Joe, because you're closed-minded. You can never be open-minded.
Oh, whatever. I just do it for veracity.
But that particular picture, I've actually thought about sending to MUFON and see what they say about it.
Right.
And it's not doctored. That's exactly the way it came off my camera.
The trouble is when we see, random photographs like that on the internet, we have no idea of the story behind it or the source. And with CGI, when I see these continual images on the internet, I'm just never impressed because it could always be a fake.
CGI is.
You get when you're looking at some of that stuff on the internet, especially the pictures and stuff like that, you got to be very skeptical about it because, with Photoshop and everybody having Photoshop or some kind of editing software that comes standard with Windows or on your Apple computers, they've got some of the best editing software.
Well, 3D
Yeah.
Paint. 3D Paint, which is a standard program for Windows 10.
Right.
I've proven you can do a lot of stuff with 3D Paint.
Oh yeah. Well, that's how we've made some of our graphics.
Yeah. I've made some of our. In fact, the background we got right now, he sent like a blank to me, and I touched it up and fixed all the lettering and everything. And I use 3D Paint, and it's not hard to crop and doctor photographs and stuff because it's got a part in there where you can literally outline what you want to pull out of that picture and just outline it and pull it directly right out of that and set it over as a sticker. You can put it in the folder as a sticker.
And then we get all those artifacts on the moon and Mars, and some of them may well be real, but you just I have to just take them all with a grain of salt. I used to make my own fake photographs as a kid, as many of us did, hang things on threads and superimpose images on paintings and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So, and I still have some of those somewhere. They weren't going to fool anybody, but.
Well, one of the things I like is when I can go on the NASA website and actually look at the rover, the pictures from the rovers, because normally those don't get screwed with. Those are coming directly from the rover, and then NASA's posting them.
Well, and some used to be able to get the original photographs from the moon, and there's a lot of stories about people that did actually find artifacts, things that didn't make sense from those original photographs before they were tampered with by apparently NASA or some group or whatever. It's always very intriguing. I mean, from the face on Mars on down, but again, they always go in my suspend belief file, and I can't, I just can't put my finger on it and say it's real.
Right. So, have you heard about what the conversation between Neil Armstrong and NASA supposedly was the first time they landed?
Yes, something about them not being alone on the moon, and
Allegedly, what happened is NASA shut off the live feed, but they still had the medical feed, which is a constant contact with the astronauts. And they shut that live feed off in order so they didn't have anything coming through when they were talking to Neil and for the life of me, I can never remember his name.
with the second guy, Buzz Aldrin.
Was it Aldrin that was on the moon
Yeah,
with him?
Buzz Aldrin was the second guy. Neil
Buzz
Armstrong
Lightyear
was the
from Toy Story, and you remember.
That would be you, Woody. So, but allegedly what happened is they went to the medical channel and talked to him, and Neil Armstrong said, and I am not going to quote this verbatim, but it's pretty close. They are here. They are watching us. So that if that phrase is correct and true, then that means that our government and NASA knew that there were going to be some sort of aliens or creatures that are going to be up there, knowing that we were going to bring ourselves up there, that we were going to land there. And then also there's reports that one of the astronauts said that the moon rang like a bell whenever the bottom part of the lander hit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Sounds like Edgar Rice Burroughs there.
And then what was the purpose? What was the purpose of China setting off that nuclear weapon on the moon itself?
Good question. I do remember
that's actually documented.
I'm old enough that I was watching the moon landing in '69, and we had the intrigue. The Russians had sent up Luna 13, and Luna 13 allegedly was going to come down and pick up rocks automatically and then blast off and bring them back to Earth. And so there was this kind of like a horse race. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were some damn robot. And I remember Neil Armstrong's father being interviewed, and he was ticked off. He's like, he didn't say, what the hell are they doing? But that's kind of what he implied. But whatever happened, Luna 13 crashed into the moon and at about 300 miles an hour. So it wasn't going to come back with anything except an insurance claim.
And then I also had when I was a lot younger, I had a girlfriend who her dad worked for McDonnell Douglas, and he actually him and I we hit it off pretty well, and I got talking with him because of my interest in aerospace and my interest in this the scientific portions of UFOs and everything like that. He actually told me that the moon rocks that they had brought back during the Apollo missions, the studies and materials that they found in those moon rocks, that we have every bit of material on the moon that we would need to build a base from the materials that are found on the moon itself.
Right.
So,
well, of course,
that's a pretty interesting concept there too.
Yeah. Of course, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, but
I think everybody did.
Yeah, probably did. I mean, others wanted to be firemen and policemen, which is good. But man, I wanted to explore the cosmos. Like,
yep.
I was one that always wanted to be a cop.
Nah, I don't know about you, Joe.
Oh, it's true.
But no, when I was a kid, with all the experiences that I've had and the things that I've seen over the years, I mean, honestly, I always used to dream of actually meeting aliens and then saying, "Come on, let's go. We want to show you this
right.
universe."
Now they're unscheduled medical examinations with no HMO or deductible or copay. So they can go somewhere else. I think at the Bray Road conference, the thing I want to talk about is try and get into the why, or just I'm going to ask a million questions. Like I mentioned earlier, we have these things that act like animals. They don't act like intelligent beings that happen to be all hairy and look like a dog standing upright. They act like animals, yet they're surrounded by this technology. What are they there for? It's almost like they're placed there as sentries. I mentioned how the Bucks County team, they planned to be out there all night. They decided not to stay out there. And when you hear the tape, I can see why. Again, I can't prove what was howling there back and forth on that property, but it was creepy as hell. Lee Hampel told us that he's had other teams out there, like you have been out, but there's one team that went out there, and he sleeps. There's a place he can sleep in there.
Yep.
Yep.
Otherwise, he doesn't live there. But they came to him about 10:30 and said, "We were told to leave." And he said, "What are you talking about? I own the property. You can stay as long as you want." And they said, "No, we were told to leave." And that's all he told us. Donna Fink, who ran the Beast of Bray Road conference, found out and told me that apparently they were out there with some kind of a ghost box or something like that. And there was a very clear voice on there that told them that they had to leave. So,
Now, hold on a second. I can believe that
yes,
because of what happened to us. We were out there with a gentleman by the name of Dale Kazmarek. He's a real good friend of ours. We've gone on a couple other investigations with him down in Iowa. We invited him to come along with us to the Beast of Bray Road. We got there, what was it, say 6, 7 o'clock at night? Was it?
I think it was around 6-ish. We went and had lunch and then or dinner and then came back over there.
Right. So it was Lee. It was Lee was there with us for a while, and then he went off.
It was before it got dark.
He went
so we could get
went off and slept in his barn at a certain time. He decided it's time for me to go to sleep. And I don't know. It was pretty late, pretty dark. It was getting close to 11, 12 o'clock at night. You could hear. We've got this footage. We don't have it released yet to anybody. You can hear Dale and I talking, and I think it's even on the camera where I might have because mine was set up on a tripod. But we have, you can hear Lee and I talking about we've got a bipedal figure, Dale, in the cornfield, standing upright, and it was in the cornfield, and this was on the thermal. Okay, and we were sitting there. You could hear us talking about it. You could hear us saying we lost track of it, and you can hear us saying that we think it followed Mark because Mark was walking out in the hayfield along the trail next to the cornfield that Lee would take his trailer out for the hay rides later that year. And when Mark got back, he said something was following him. He believes it, and apparently he was talking to it when he was out there, and he's got that recording. Mark's got the recording of him talking to something that he believes that was following him through the cornfield.
Wow.
Now, a few hours later, it was almost 3 o'clock in the morning. We were going to stay right overnight because we noticed a lot of the trail cam pictures, the really cool ones, happened anywhere between 6 o'clock and 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So we were trying to stay out there that whole night. All of a sudden, I've never seen this happen before. I've lived in Wisconsin all my life. Okay. The fog rolled in out of nowhere, thicker than pea soup, and fast as hell. So in order to save our equipment, we had to pack it up quick because moisture's
right.
and equipment's worst nightmare. So we ended up packing up our equipment as quick as we could. We're coming back through with flashlights, make sure we didn't leave anything on the ground. And as we were coming back through, that fog was completely dissipated and gone. It was like it came in to chase us out.
The Bucks County team, you can see on their video, they started to have some fog rolling in. It wasn't super thick and it was low to the ground, but it just all of a sudden showed up. Now, maybe that was regular, a normal atmospheric condition, but with everything else going on, they thought perhaps it wasn't.
Yeah, that's I mean we kind of think it was to chase us out before things started happening, because a lot of the things that we've noticed, and or I've personally noticed, when you look at some of the timestamps on the pictures from the trail cams, it's like the wee hours of the morning
Yes.
in a lot of the cases. And so, it's getting on 3 a.m. We're still out there. We saw the bipedal figure. I don't think we were supposed to see that either, but we had it on I mean, he didn't have a normal thermal camera that's handheld. He had it an attachment to
A tablet.
a tablet. Yeah, like
Okay.
this. It was about this size.
So you could see it
It was
Tablet
about
like this
10
one.
without looking through a
tablets like
lens.
this one, yeah. Yeah, it was just like that one. And I was looking at it with him, and you can hear us talking on the audio and stuff that we've got in the cameras about the bipedal figure, and we like, well, we lost track of it. Maybe it followed Mark, because we couldn't find it anymore, and it's like maybe it followed Mark.
Well, when you, I mean, I'm going to try and make some sense out of this and maybe do some speculation, but it's a mystery, and it may be. There's a story, Terry Sherman, who owned the Skinwalker Ranch before it was sold to Bob Bigelow. He had an experience or a dream or something in the midst of all the craziness going on there, where he seemed like he was on a craft. He looked out the window. He seemed to be in space. There were two men in uniforms on there. And the message he got was, it will do us no good to tell you what we're doing because you won't understand it. But Jacques Vallée talked about something called metalogic, where the beings or whatever are so far advanced from us that what they're doing just doesn't make any sense to us. And I can't help but think of, I don't know if you guys have seen the film, The Mothman Prophecies.
Yes, I have.
There's a scene where Dr. Leek is talking to Richard Klein, or John Klein. And John Klein, Richard Gere, is trying to figure out what's going on. And Leek, the Leek character, Alan Bates, who has experienced all this, said, you're more advanced than a cockroach. Have you ever tried to explain yourself to one? And I'm wondering if that's what the difference in perception or intelligence level is with some of this, because the stuff that goes on there doesn't make any sense. What is it, a Grand Central Station, a liminal area where the air is thin and all these things intersect in other dimensions? Does it come from one source? Is it different sources that have competing goals or whatever? But it's like a madhouse when you sit there. Now, I know you've seen more of the pictures than I have. I mean, you've sat there longer, but just the 2 hours that night in Lee Hample's barn, going through one incredible photograph after another.
Oh yeah,
I'll never forget it.
Yeah, you probably had it so that you could see it on the TV screen, I suppose.
Yes.
He had the TV screen set up in the barn. See, when we first saw him, he didn't have that. We were going through them binder by binder. He was
showing us these pictures on his phone that he still had on his phone, his laptop, and then also his binders that he had hard copies of.
Yeah.
If you watch the the Bray Road Beast documentary by Small Town Monsters, Lee Hample is seen at the end of it, and that's what he's doing with Seth Breedlove and the guys there. He's going through these binders. You don't see too much of it, but all these binders full of photographs, one after another. And he's been doing this for about a decade, capturing these things.
Yeah, pretty close.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and the thing is that his farm, that general area, has been kind of dubbed the Skinwalker Ranch of Wisconsin.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not the first ones that said it either.
Oh, we weren't the first ones to say that.
I actually heard somebody in one of the groups. One of the groups that I actually signed up with on Facebook, I heard somebody had it posted.
Yeah.
That's like the Skinwalker Ranch of Wisconsin.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of places that get dubbed Skinwalker Ranch too. It seems like these things are going on all the time, but they've, in past years, they've just been ignored. There's been no photographic evidence. You're familiar with David Paulides, who writes the Missing 411 books about the bizarre disappearances in state parks and so forth.
Right.
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
and these are incredible disappearances. These are that there's a certain criteria he has. Well, at the end of his book on hunters, a lady named Jan Maccabee, whose famous husband is Bruce Maccabee, a photographic expert from the Navy. He was in the Navy. She was in a deer blind near Lima, Ohio. She saw something in a tree. It was like it was jumping from like branch to branch, but it had kind of the blurring effect, sort of like the predator effect. And sometimes Bigfooters call it the shimmer or the quicksilver curtain. So it was something. She got photographs of it. Everything got real quiet. They call it the Oz factor. And so she just stayed there for a long time and didn't move. Finally, I think things went back to normal. She got the hell out of there. She found out at the same time her nephew, a half mile away at the high school, they were doing some kind of band practice. They saw a large globe of light over the football field. Her husband examines the photographs, and it shows it in the book. You see the blur or the quicksilver curtain, whatever you want to call it. And off to the edge are these black hairs that you can see. And that is creepy as hell. Bigfooters will tell you about, the book Valley of the Skookum by Sally Shepard Wolford. She's the mother of Autumn Williams, who is a famous Bigfoot researcher. When Autumn was 3 to 6, they lived in Ording, Washington State. And her mother, Sally, and a Native American friend, they would see these shimmers once in a while. The Native American tradition was that they were portals for Bigfoot. Well, I don't know what Jan Maccabee photographed, but the idea that there was something there watching her or stalking her, perhaps, and these hairs are coming out, that's creepy as hell. She made a post on Facebook once and said that they've captured other things on their trap cameras. She called her place Skinwalker 2. Somebody's going to have to copyright that Skinwalker 2 moniker, I think, because there's but the thing is, there's so many of these places out there. Sedona, the Bradshaw Ranch.
Oh, yeah.
Marley Woods that Ted Phillips would investigate. And how many places that we don't even know of, where people are just used to seeing strange lights in the sky, strange creatures and so forth, and just shut up about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the things that we can tie a lot of that into as well is these places. If we look at them and research them, do they cross? Is there ley lines that cross there? Are there underground reservoirs there? Is there a granite formation underneath the ground there, or is it within a granite formation? Because granite holds crystals, and quartz crystal is a very, very lucrative conductor of electricity and energy.
Right. There are people now, that's not my area, but there are people that have written books on that, trying to look at the geological structure and the power lines and all kinds of things that might bring some of this in, or maybe it just maybe that stuff's always there, but it just allows it to be seen. I don't know.
The ley lines are the natural energy flow of the planet.
Right.
And when you have ley lines crossing, where areas that you would have ley lines crossing, a lot of times those are reported as having activity, lots of activity of UFOs. Also with volcanoes, for instance, volcanoes have also had a history of having a lot of UFO reportings from there, because a lot of people believe, they theorize that that's a fuel source for UFOs, that they can draw energy from that volcano.
Linda Godfrey, in one of her books called Monsters Among Us, she wrote about a guy in the 90s on a highway in Highway 81, maybe, in Pennsylvania. He sees this light going through the woods that's going to intersect the road that he's traveling on. And when it gets there, it morphs into an upright canid about 6 feet tall and sprints across the road. There's many reports of these balls of light or whatever shape-shifting into something like a critter. Does it mean it was passing from another dimension? It was always a flesh and blood animal? Or was it really some kind of a ball or energy that's actual molecular structure changed? You mentioned ley lines. Paul Devereaux, a British researcher, has written many books on earth energies and that sort of thing. he coined a term called proto entities, and he talks about sightings where people see the craft or the light, and it's indistinguishable from the entity. Even if it looks like a craft, it's almost like it morphs or whatever. He talked about a sighting in Australia once where people in a park saw this globe of light, and they saw this entity kind of form in it. It coalesced and formed in it. They saw there's another case he talked about in England, near Nottingham Canal. Was it Nottingham? I think. I can't remember. But these three kids, they saw this mist forming, and it started following them, and they took off. Two of them saw part of it seeming to form into kind of a big, hairy Bigfoot creature, but it was translucent. The other one, while it saw the light and the mist or the cloud, never saw the entity. It's another factor that shows up where sometimes people sharing the same experience don't quite see the same thing. Sometimes it's very dramatic. But so, when I just think people need to be careful when they use the term interdimensional. Well, what do we mean by that? Is it a creature that can somehow go elsewhere, but it's always the same, always intact? Or is it like Ron Moorhead, who was a Bigfoot researcher who wrote a book? His second book was Quantum Bigfoot. He used to believe Bigfoot was merely an undocumented creature. He seems to suggest that its molecular structure changes, the energy changes somehow. I can't really describe his theory exactly, but boy, there's so many mysteries, and I mean, it's important to see what people believe, to listen to their stories, and not prejudge them.
There's so many different theories.
All right.
And nobody's been proven right yet.
Right.
Now, you were talking about orbs of light and stuff and changing formation.
Yes.
All right. This is, where is it? There it is. Watch. It comes in right here.
Oh, yeah.
I caught this out there. This is on my night vision spotter scope.
Okay.
That was like a weird glitch in the camera.
Okay.
But it went from like a half
Right.
to a full.
You
and
know,
you can see it's kind of strobing, and it just goes right up and along and right across.
did Lee send you the image? It was footage of at night of his on his farm somewhere. And if you look at it with the naked eye, there's nothing.
Yeah.
If you look at that footage, it looks like there's a fire there with all kinds of smoke going up, but it's not registered with the naked eye, but it is with this camera lens, this particular lens. What the hell is that?
Don't know.
What would happen if you walked there and stood there where you're seeing that? Although Lee has gotten pictures of himself on trap cameras with the mist surrounding him on a clear day, and he sees nothing.
Oh yeah, I've seen those pictures too. Those mist
there's
pictures
a
are
lot of strange activity going on that property.
But see, was that the kind of orb you're talking about, or the ball of light or something?
Well, it was in some cases it was there was a creature similar to the Mothman about 3 years earlier in Kent, England. Some kids were coming back from a dance, and this light comes down behind the trees, and then but it's not like a craft or anything, and then this winged creature emerges. There are actually literally cases where it looks like maybe some kind of craft or light, but then the entities or whatever seem to be just connected with it. They're not separate from it. It's not like they're a physical being that steps out of a doorway down the stair and shakes your hand. So there's anyway, he gives several. He even gives some old ones where 1800s. The guy is standing on the cliffs of the ocean, and he sees its light come in from the sea, and it stops over the edge of the cliff, morphs into a woman in a robe carrying an infant. That image, that ghost apparition, walks off and then disappears. So these are actually some where there's a transforming of the light into something,
Mhm.
or I don't know if it's actually changing or if we're actually seeing what's there and it's masking itself somehow. There's so many possibilities.
Right. Yeah. There is. There's a lot of possibilities. That orb that I showed you, though, I don't have any true reference distance
Right.
because my scope that I use can it shoots in night vision, and it can shoot from anywhere from like 10 feet in front of it all the way out to 350 meters. So I'm not sure how far away from the camera it was because I had it set up to point directly at the backside of the field, and we were up behind the pole barn,
Yeah, we were just
or
behind.
we were just outside the pole barn in the back, and that's where we had everything set up. And
It
then
seemed
just
to
walking
hold that
around the area.
image for a while, not like a
Oh
dust
yeah,
orb or something like that. It seemed to be kind of
no, 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 no.
have an outline.
Yeah, and it was there was it was a calm evening. There wasn't any wind or anything. So when that came in, and that was
no lightning.
right after I set it up. That was, I mean, it was almost immediately after I set my scope up with the camera and everything. And Lee and I were the only ones back there. Joe and Dale were up in the other side of the barn where the cars were getting
We were
equipment ready.
still unpacking equipment.
Yeah, they were still unpacking equipment. I set it up just so I can have it going as a reference. And it's kind of weird because I wasn't certain if I set my I got an old S7 that I've got set up to hook to the camera, and I wasn't certain if I had it set up properly to record. So
Right.
what I did is I picked up the camera or the phone, and I was playing with it, and I stopped the camera, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I had it set right, and I hit it again and set it up to record again. As soon as I recorded, 18 seconds in is when that orb comes in. So if I would have been, 30 seconds off or something longer, I would have never caught that orb.
Right.
So it's really interesting to see it because it comes in, it looks like a half orb.
Right.
And then there's this little glitch that happens, and then it looks like it turns into a full orb. So I'm pretty sure it's a glitch in the filming on the camera, but
Right.
I just find it intriguing, and
Yeah.
just the stuff out there is it's phenomenal. All that's there.
It's
Well,
endlessly fascinating.
There's some weird shit out there. I mean, and the worst part about some of it is when you see it, you're not prepared to take a picture or
That's right.
record it, and that's what really pisses me off.
That's
I mean,
why
I'll never forget the day we were driving
that's
back.
why I got this now.
We were driving back, and I don't remember where we were driving back from. I just remember, all I remember is I've lived here, like I said, I lived here in Wisconsin all my life. I know most of the wildlife because I've seen it all. The eagles, all the big birds and stuff. All the birds of prey that are usually in the area. I've seen it one time or another. I swear to God, this one day we were driving down the road. My wife and I were coming back home from somewhere, and we were on one of the major highways. And we got the big exit signs, those great big exit signs that tell you multiple exits, and they've got to be maybe 6-7 feet wide or more.
Well, it depends on the highway you're on. If it's a 2-lane, then you've got a 20-foot.
We're coming back on the interstate.
I'm telling you. Okay, so if you're on a 3-lane interstate, that sign, that's going to be like a 32 foot long sign or wide sign.
All right,
because
whatever.
each lane's at least 11 feet.
This was
wide.
like the one that was going from one interstate to the other, so it had like the Wisconsin Dells exit, the one for Cambridge or whatever, and then the one for.
All right, then that would be probably two lanes wide, which is about
going 20, towards Chicago.
20 to 24 feet wide.
Right. So the wingspan was at least that long. I saw something black sitting in the middle of it, and it had its wings spread out. And it was just slightly longer than the sign.
Not your average turkey vulture, I don't think.
No, No,
That's what
not
I was
around here.
telling him.
And
That's
most
what
of
I
the
told him it was.
and I've seen turkey vultures before though too, and I don't believe it was because most of those I've seen they hang out towards Oregon
No,
because of the feeding that's out there.
There's a bunch of turkey vultures actually out off of 12 and 18 and the interstate
Yeah,
where the
by the dump.
dump is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I don't know. This just seemed way too big to be one, and it just didn't look like one. It just it the feeling you got when you went closer and got closer to it, it just kind of scared the hell out of me, because I didn't know what it was. And I know most of the birds when I see them,
Right.
because I sit out here. I came out here to live out here in the country where I live, out in the middle of nowhere, for nature's music. And I got pissed off because the community here decided to start shooting off these fucking bird cannons. And they scared off all the owls, all the mourning doves, all the eagle. There'd be a couple of eagles that come in once in a while, and then there's all kinds of, you know, um, uh, oh, what's the other one? Hawks. There's all kinds of hawks out here, and
Hawks, falcons, eagles.
yeah, they're all out here. They were all out here at one time, and then you had all the ones that sat by that lake that Joy and I love to go out and spook in the morning because they'd be
All the
sitting out
geese.
there. All the geese, the Canadian geese. But they started shooting off the bird cannons because the geese are getting too loud.
So
Yeah.
a pretty good sized owl once, maybe 4 feet, when it was flying in the woods, but that's pretty good. But yeah, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
This was just unbelievable. I've never seen anything that big. And I've seen some strange shit because we went out by the Mississippi River. We got my wife's dad's got some property out there. We were out there one time and I saw something really cool. And it's like nothing paranormal, but just something you wouldn't see every day unless you're out in the middle of nature watching it constantly. But this bald eagle caught another bird, had it in its talons. And I wish I would have had my camera ready. And all of a sudden the bird got loose from the eagle and it caught it again. And the next thing you know, here it is about 3 feet away from me on the highway, sitting there eating that bird.
Oh man.
It's like, all right, I'm not taking you back to my nest. I'm going to, land right here and I'm going to kill you right now. You got away
Take
once,
care of it.
get away again. But I just, it got away and then you watch it catch it again and then it goes down. You're dead. It's something you just don't see every day in nature, and it was kind of cool.
Right.
It's another one of those incidents. I wish I had a camera.
But then some of these things like the Mothman, about 100 people saw it over a period of that first year that John Keel chronicled. It was about 6-7 feet tall, dark, 10-foot wingspan, piercing red glowing eyes, not reflective, but glowing.
Yeah. Glowing.
And the wingspan wasn't probably big enough to carry up something that size, but also it didn't always flap its wings. It would put its wings behind it, take off straight like a helicopter. Some people that saw it in close proximity thought it had like a hum to it or some kind of machinery. So what are we talking? A drone? I mean, it didn't fit anything. It was a paradox. It doesn't fit a flesh and blood creature. It doesn't fit an apparition completely, and it doesn't fit a drone. There is something weird that kind of ties into the Dogman. Keel, when he examined the Mothman was seen by this old North power plant in the TNT area. He found some skinny-looking little tracks that might have been due to Mothman, but he also found large dog-like footprints that he said the beast must have been 300 pounds because of the way it was pushed in there.
Mm-hmm.
He found other footprints and other like UFO spots in that same time period. Ivan Sanderson, his friend and colleague, who's known for or was known for the abominable snowman legend come to life. He was a British naturalist transplanted to New Jersey. He said the same thing. We keep finding these footprints in these paranormal hotspots, but then there's no that's mentioned in the Mothman prophecies, but that's all the information we get, and these men are long gone for them to delve into it.
DNA, no bones, no.
See, that's the weird thing.
That's
That's something that's got me wondering too. Why is it that we have all these sightings and possible videos of cryptids, but we have no actual evidence like hair samples, DNA samples, bones, or anything of that
some of that
nature?
hair sample, though, Mark. Some of that hair samples, they've been too degraded, so they haven't been able to come back identifying as anything. And then some of it just comes back, well, it's not on the books.
Yeah.
And some they say has a human factor and then,
Right.
and then an unknown. But then
And then
others
the
will
other-
say, will scoff and say, no, that's, so it's hard to get through it. But they're
some
physical enough to
of
leave
it's brown
footprints, hair samples sometimes, and scare the hell out of people. But
Right.
they are very elusive and just
Well,
seem to evaporate back to wherever they came from.
There is theories that the Sasquatch or Bigfoot are a descendant from the Gigantopithecus.
Right, and that's one thing I don't think I buy because of it wouldn't explain the high strangeness aspects of it. Although we might have two different things.
There's also theories that they are the surviving species of Neanderthal.
Right.
That Neanderthal actually did not go extinct.
That goes back
They
to
just hid themselves, because if you look at geological studies of the United States, we literally have a huge cavern network underneath the United States. There is a cavern network under our country. It's enormous.
It's just that sometimes Stan Gordon in Silent Invasion chronicled all kinds of bizarre Bigfoot reports, sometimes in proximity to strange lights. One woman shot one point blank when she heard something rummaging on her porch, and it disappeared in a flash of light. You had the other classic case where the guy, they see this craft, it seems to land. He sees these creatures with green glowing eyes. They sound like a baby crying. He shoots one of them, and it seems like it sounds like he said a bullet going into water. Eventually, this craft or whatever, this light vanishes. They go back into the woods. He gets the state police out there. He sees this glowing light on the ground. Stan Gordon and his team finally get out there, and he tells them the whole experience with and nothing's there anymore. But then all of a sudden, this guy starts to have a spell, and he's howling and screaming, and he's stamping his feet, and he collapses. When he comes to, he doesn't remember anything of that. But what he remembered was seeing a vision of a Grim Reaper type character, giving him all kinds of dire predictions about the future. So, and this Bigfoot encounter is much more detailed. But then later, Stan Gordon, they wanted to put him under regressive hypnosis, but they thought he had this bizarre spell. They better leave him alone for a while. A couple of years later, they went to him and said, "Do you mind if our team puts you under hypnosis?" And he said, "What do you mean? You came back 2 weeks later and did that." A man in an Air Force uniform and a plain clothes man came in and asked him all about his experience and put him under hypnosis, said, "We'll get back to you with the results." They never did. And he claims they even showed him a book with photographs of different kinds of creatures and UFOs to see if he could identify what he had seen. So the thing is, those particular Bigfoots seem to be paranormal. They even disappear sometimes. Then you take maybe some of the ones in the Northwest, which seem to be kind of a different variety. It's almost like the ones in Pennsylvania were sort of counterfeits of the flesh and blood ones that exist elsewhere. But even the flesh and blood ones, their footprints will stop in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're translucent. And it's just so hard to put these things in a box.
Yeah, nobody's ever got a clear picture.
No.
Now,
I doubt if they will.
There's another thing too. I heard this reported. I'm still trying to find the video on YouTube about this, but it's not an actual video. It's more of an audio. Remember back in the 80s when Mount St. Helens exploded?
Yes.
Okay. There is a retired military Army National Guardman who claims up and down, and he says there are videos and pictures out there of the National Guard and the military, not just the Guard, the military themselves, picking up dead Sasquatch bodies
Right.
and helping live Sasquatch that they found after the aftermath of that.
There is a book called Bigfoot Shootout by, I believe it's by Gray Barker.
I've heard of that
and
one.
it's Saucerian Publications, which supposedly described that series of incidents. And I have no idea if it's true or not.
Yeah, I know that's the whole thing. You know, it's supposed to be a firsthand account from a Army National Guardman who is retired. So, you know, you got to take his word on it, and we're not sure if it's even true. But if those pictures are out there and that video and any of that videos out there, I would love to see that get leaked.
Oh, sure.
Because right now, Joe and I are in agreement on this. The only video out there that we believe is truly authentic is the Patterson film.
Right.
Because
that
that's because of the time frame it was shot in, the type of camera it was shot on, the film it was used, and the fact that when you watch that footage of that creature walking that creek bed walking across, you can see the muscle movement under the hair.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Bill Moon's work?
See that. Now, in that time frame, back in the 60s like that, they did not have the technology advanced enough in order to fake something like that.
Yeah, Bill Moon, who's a costume maker, demonstrated the muscle movements with models of people and the way they move in different positions, and it would have them move in the same way this thing did. And you can see the muscle tone and the shadows and everything on the back, the way it works out. And the other thing was, the other researcher, scientist, Meldrum, Dr. Meldrum, has said that there is something unique about the way it walks. When you look at he's an expert on the bone structure in the leg and the foot. He said the way it moves, it doesn't move like a human does. You know, even if it was in a costume, it's not moving properly. And he goes into all the, heavy scientific detail and shows you he even had he spoke before a team of doctors that had this kind of specialty, and they were skeptics. But once he started explaining this thing and the way that the leg moved and how it was impossible for a human being to actually walk like that, he started to get their attention. So there is something, but it's so weird that that's about the only one. I mean, there might be a few other stills that could be real, but this is the one, and they were going out looking for Bigfoot.
Yeah, and you know how many times that particular film has been scrutinized and has been looked at over and over and over again in order to try and debunk it, and it's not been proven yet as being a fake.
And one thing Bill Moon, more recently, is he's been getting more and more copies of that film. They're all so many generations away from the original. Well, he keeps finding better and better copies. He transposes them over each other, and it's getting more and more clear. And there's some more detail coming through.
Well,
so,
if you think about it, that footage was taken in the late 60s, which was also around the time that I think one of the first Planet of the Apes movie was made. And if you take a look at that, I mean, Hollywood didn't even have the technology to make decent costumes, because if you watch those Planet of the Apes movies from the 60s, they're pretty fake. You can easily see that.
And they spent a ton of money on those at the time.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So
if they were going to fake that film, they would have had to find a woman, because this is a distinctively, you can see breasts on this creature as well.
Right.
They would have had to have found a female close to 7 feet tall, got her to agree to strip naked and have
That might have been a little
all
easier.
this hair pasted on her, glued on her, and walk barefoot across hard stone on that
or
in that
whatever
creek
was
bed.
under the ground.
Yeah,
No,
we would have had to
think
call
about
her
it. It was
Dr.
probably-
Zira.
Right. I mean, think about it. You know, that's a lot of
Well,
planning
the
to
hardest
actually
thing to do
make
would have
something
been to
like
find
that.
a woman about 7 foot tall in the first place. In the 60s, that was not a common thing.
Exactly.
Today, it might be.
My point. And not just 7 foot tall, but 7 foot tall with a husky build like that.
Right.
Well, you might be able to find somebody like that today.
Well,
But
I know somebody like that today, but that's a different story.
I think Schwarzenegger's busy. I'm sorry. I had to throw a little bit of a humorous poke
But I
out
always
there.
found that the cryptid part of the paranormal world, for me, that's been the most fascinating part.
Right.
You know,
But
I mean, the thing is that you can take and you can look at our Beast of Bray Road. People have also said, well, maybe that's a dire wolf that hasn't gone, they didn't really go extinct or they make a
Yeah.
comeback. You know.
no.
Too much weird stuff going on there.
But
Yeah.
then again, anything's possible in this world. You know.
Well, Lee Hample even said he had missing time one night. He missed
Right,
an hour.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Well,
that.
yeah, and that's also common for abductees.
Hmm.
But then what do you
Yeah,
think about
and-
have you ever heard of, what was that thing in where is it? The one that's actually was a hoax and now everybody believes it.
What, the hodag?
Yeah, the Hodag.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You think Hodags are real?
The Rylander Hodag.
I'll be
Isn't that
darned.
Rylander? Was that Rylander?
Rhinelander.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did it. They created the thing to boost tourism.
And now everybody thinks it's real.
I know they got the Hodag store. I met the guy that runs it at the Van Meter Visitor Festival.
Mm.
All kinds of green.
Now that's a festival I'd like to get to.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's,
definitely.
I've spoken there a few times, and
The
it's
Van
a
Meter,
great little festival.
unfortunately, this last year, the Van Meter Festival and the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference were on the same weekend.
Right.
So we couldn't go
Right.
because we were
Well-
already set to go to Milwaukee.
Yeah, well, T. Krulos, who's the one that sets up the Milwaukee Paracon, he said he's going to make sure this year he is not going to have it during Van Meter.
So we're going to try to go there this year.
Well, the Mothman Festival is usually the third weekend in September. Van Meter is always the fourth weekend, or the last weekend, I should say.
Yeah.
And then there's another one in Michigan, the Houghton Lake UFO Conference, which sometimes coincides with either one or comes the weekend before. Just depends.
So we've been talking UFOs and stuff, and one of the things I forgot to ask you, have you you've heard of Dr. Greer, haven't you?
Yes.
Have you followed any of his stuff?
Well, there is a group out of Brighton, Michigan area that's one of these CE5 groups that follows his protocols. And I have been out there a couple nights in a little park. It's outside of Brighton, and it's a park where it's kind of around the city a bit. It's a bit rural, but we go back to an area where the land kind of dips down, and we have our own little depression there. You can't see much around except trees, and they go through the rituals and so forth. And I've seen maybe some things go overhead that weren't, that were pulled in. But let me tell the weird experience that happened. I was sitting there. I had my EMF meter, and I was sitting next to a young lady, Cheryl, and my meter started to go up very slowly, and I have no idea why. Now, she had her tri-field meter laying down, and she was taking photographs. Well, at one point, she found out when you look at the small tri-field meter lens, there's a reflection on there of it's like part of a hand. It's like part of the finger and goes down to the thumb. It's in black and white. It's if the hand passed over it, you should be seeing the other side of your hand. But this is what you saw, and it was much smaller. It's a real photograph of something physical that we didn't see. It's bizarre.
Wow.
And I didn't. She's more of a sensitive, but like I say, I don't sense anything. Now she has seen strange lights when she's been out there at some of these events. They talked about one time they had talking about mists. They went through the protocols and they're doing this, and this mist, like wall of mist, comes up, and then one of the ladies started spontaneously channeling something, some entity supposedly. So, excuse me. I think I'm not sure, because sometimes the human mind, when a group of minds can join together, sometimes I think we can create phenomena or situations. So I don't know how objective some of these things were, but I tell you that photograph that she captured with that part of a small hand in black and white on her tri-field meter lens is really bizarre. And thinking that I was sitting right next to whatever this little gremlin was messing around there. I just don't know how to explain it.
Well, it is said that we only understand a very fraction of what our true mind and will and ability can be.
And I excel at using just a small part of my mind, I think. But there's one thing that we I think we can remember, and I'm gonna kind of paraphrase Timothy Green Beckley, who we just lost a little while ago. He used to call him Mr. UFO. He said in an interview once, he says, whatever these things are, whatever cryptids are, whatever UFOs are, they act completely independently of what we think of them. They've got their own agenda, their own existence. So we have all these competing theories. Some people say flesh and blood, say no, interdimensional, nuts and bolts, no, they're ethereal, they're some kind of plasma or whatever. So, but I think they have some kind of objective reality or existence, even if we co-create some of these images with that energy or phenomena.
Right. Well, that's a possibility.
Bottom line is, I don't know.
I don't think we're gonna know, not in this lifetime anyway.
No.
I believe everybody's got a theory. Some of those theories, I can't say that any of them are wrong either. You can't. I mean, some of them can be a little far-fetched, but
some of them
paranormal world.
Some of them go way off the edge, but on the other hand, since we really don't know, maybe we need to go off the edge to find out these answers. I
Kind
don't
of
know.
thinking out of the box.
No,
way out of the box.
I prefer playing on the fringe. You can peer over the fringe and look into the abyss and see what's there, but just
make sure you're tied to a lanyard.
Yes.
Make sure
you don't want to fall into the abyss. That rabbit hole will take you places that you don't want to go.
Otherwise, you'll start writing books that are really wacky if you start doing that.
I don't think I'm ever going to write a book.
I am writing a book, and I expect it to be out sometime this decade. So keep your eyes open.
Unfortunately, I've got a lot of crap up here, but I don't have the skill to use this to put it down on paper.
Right. That's why we need a ghostwriter. Use the lack for a better term.
Yeah.
So you read that one book? Well, when did it come out? Last year? No, it was a documentary that they did. Linda Godfrey and her son did a documentary and put it out last year, I think.
Yes, on the cats. What was it?
Yeah,
yes,
on the cats.
I actually saw part of it at the Van Meter Visitor Festival a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah, it came out a couple of years ago because it was on Milwaukee.
Wildcat Mountain.
Yeah, because it was Milwaukee Paranormal Conference was entirely online that year. So
You want to hear the craziest black dog story you're ever going to hear? I interviewed Alan Godfrey on my radio show, my podcast. He's a famous abductee. They're actually going to make his experience finally into a movie. 1980, he's a police officer in Todmorden, England. He gets called out because they're finding these cows in a gated community. They have no idea how they got out there. There's other instances of displaced livestock, like the bulls you might have heard about at the Skinwalker Ranch, crammed in that white trailer.
All in that one trailer all
Yep.
together, and not one of them spooked until he opened that door.
And Dubbed Wales in 77, this guy, Billy Coombs, had cattle on his farm. He put some in a pen, go into the barn, turn on the milk machines, come back, and they're gone. They keep showing up half a mile away at another farm. Well, so Godfrey's out there in 1980. He thinks it's a prank. He talks to the one older lady that had seen this, and she said, "I might be old, but I'm not crazy, and I know what I saw." And sure enough, they find these cows where they're not supposed to be. Okay, so he goes back to the police station. Then he finds out, hey, wait a minute, I'm missing a half hour I can't account for. A few months later, he's got a regressive hypnotherapist. He did see a craft, by the way. He saw a classic flying saucer. You could call it that, and he had missing time. When they're retrieving his memories, he's seeing these little ugly guys he can't even look at that sound kind of like grays. But there's a tall entity, like in so many of these cases, there's this tall one. He looks human. His name is Yosef, and he's wearing flowing light white robes. Very strange. But here's the weird part. So he's under hypnosis. He's describing what everything's looking like, and he stops and he says, "There's a bloody dog in here, and it's hideous." There's a large black dog, or so he says under hypnosis, inside what, a spacecraft? What the hell? It conjures up images of the black shuck, the black spectral dog that haunts the moors and ruins in England. What the hell is this cryptid, this apparition doing in supposedly a craft coming from off-world? Another pattern or parallel that makes absolutely no sense. At least maybe we have to understand meta logic or explain ourselves to a cockroach before we can understand.
Maybe that's the dog man.
Well, yeah, maybe he's a retired dog man that's has a little bit of leisure time, so he's doing some traveling.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Anything possible?
I don't know. At some point, I think we will be exposed. I have a theory. I have a theory of with all these movies and everything that have been made from Hollywood. I have a theory that these are done because of what happened in Roswell with the crash. There were actually three spacecraft that crashed that night. And the reason the one is so well known is because that's the one that actually tore apart when it crashed. The others had a controlled landing. So our government downed 3 extraterrestrial craft that night.
My favorite Roswell theory comes from Walter Bosley, whose father, around that time period, was involved in a crew that would follow up on crashed aircraft. Well, supposedly, he got this information from his father over a period of time that was highly classified. He's not absolutely sure it's true, but if it is true, there was another crash a year later. They were supposed to be the same entities that were on Roswell. His planes diverted, and it turns out these people are actually humans that separated from the humanity about 1,000 years ago and went underground and developed their own technology and their own whatever. And it's a great, I like, I have no idea what's true, but that's my favorite theory, that the Roswell entities were humans, an offshoot of the human race, but basically hairless and very white because they're living underground. But they don't have to deal with weather changes. At least that's one thing.
Yeah.
But it's in a book called Shimmering Light. It's a fascinating book by Walter Bosley.
Yeah. But to finish up too, so the movies that we get from Hollywood, I think those were designed to jade us, to get us used to the possibilities of what could be. So when we do wind up being exposed, and the creatures do, the entities do come forth and let themselves be known worldwide, I think that way, so we don't all panic.
I hope Devil Girl from Mars wasn't one of them.
I haven't seen that.
1950s. Pardon me. He was sort of a loosely inspired by The Day the Earth Stood Still. They kind of ripped off the plot a little bit. But the craft lands. They got a pretty ugly looking boxy robot, and the woman, it looks like kind of Cruella de Vil in black leather from Mars, and she wants to bring back some humans or whatever, and she disintegrates people and terrorizes people in a pub throughout the entire movie. Devil Girl from Mars. Check it out. It's cheesy good.
One of those low budget movies.
Yep. Well, anyway, Joe, I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, we're past.
Oh, I know. We're going on 2 hours here.
Wow. I get
Oh,
a bigger per diem if we go 2 hours, right?
See, Steve, you're on subject that I like too.
Oh, cool.
I love all of them. UFOs, because I've had experiences with UFOs. Cryptids, because I'm interested in the unknown like that, and then the spirits and paranormal like that. I've had experiences with that as well.
Well, there seemed to me that there are connections there, and we don't have to manufacture them or imagine them. It seems that when we look at things objectively and listen to people and what they report, that we will find interesting patterns that perhaps will help us a little bit understand what's going on and figure out that the man behind the curtain, and then we can beat the crap out of them.
Well, maybe.
Maybe not.
But anyway, thanks for coming on and chatting with us.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
I liked it. It was a lot of fun.
It's fun when conversations go a million different ways.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's even better because I was able to figure out that.
Yes, and it's funny, when I was trying to hear you better, I'm actually moving closer to the screen, which isn't going to do any good anyway.
Yell, damn it, yell!
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
All right.
What, Joe?
Go ahead, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Oh, just finish up what you were saying.
I'm done. Just
okay. Well, next Tuesday we'll be back with Janet Ramsey and crew.
Oh, cool.
That'll be fun. Another one from Michigan. So it was nice having you. Thanks for coming on. You got anything you want to promote before you leave?
An earth-shattering quote. I guess I will just reiterate what I said earlier, that it's important to listen to the experiencers. Of course, we're trying to assess how credible they are, but listen to what they're saying, kind of set aside our preconceived ideas, because we all have some ideas about what these are about, and then recognize that whatever the core of this phenomena is, it's going to act independently of all our theories. So it behooves us to listen to what people have experienced.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Good weekend.
And have a good weekend.
All right. Here we go.